The Disrupt Education vlog can be found on YouTube. To hear it in podcast form, search Disrupt Education on any of the following podcast platforms: Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Castbox, Overcast, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or Stitcher. Welcome to this episode of Disrupt Education. I got Vinay here. Thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, I'm in your office.
Yes, yeah, we are.
Tell us a little bit about what you do and what you do here.
Yeah, so I work for a social impact technology company called UpMetrics. We're here in LaGrange, just outside of Chicago. UpMetrics is actually based out of San Francisco, and we are a social impact tech company that works with schools, districts, nonprofits, and foundations around data collection, data analysis, and impact reporting.
Hot topics out there in employment, right? Yeah. Data collection. Tell us a little bit about your background in education.
Yeah, so I kind of have a unique journey. You know some of it. You've seen me along a couple of my stops. I'm actually an engineer by degree. Went to Northern Illinois. Graduated with an industrial engineering degree. Worked for Intel out on the East Coast. Did that for about 2 years, did a career change, got into some small business, owned a franchise restaurant for a little bit, but I always wanted to get into education. I wanted to coach, I wanted to teach, so I did a program called Teach for America, and through that I taught in the Chicago Public Schools for 3 years at Paul Robeson High School. Was a teacher, coach, taught math, taught business education, how we met initially, and then after that for about 3 years I then transitioned to Perspectives Charter Schools. Worked there for 9 years as the director of athletics and after-school programs. So that was a really neat job. Got to help students extend their school day in a good way. And after school wasn't as structured, which we were pretty excited about, but definitely they got some good experiences along the way with athletics, then obviously different after-school programs. And one thing I forgot to mention too was during my time as a business education teacher, and I know you'll appreciate this, did a lot of work with problem-based learning for our students and getting them field experience and working in different fields, actually a lot of technical fields around transportation, distribution, and logistics. So that was kind of something I got to do along the way as well, that got to see how kids can learn in different ways.
And you jumped then back into the corporate world, right?
Correct.
I mean, it would be almost startup world.
Yes.
With UpMetrics, and that's unique because there are a lot of teachers that go into teaching and it becomes a career. What was that jump like? And tell us a little bit about UpMetrics and how does that work into the education realm?
So it was interesting, to be honest with you. I really enjoyed teaching. I didn't know if teaching would be my long-term career path. I actually went back to school and got my school counseling degree as well. I thought at some point I would be a school counselor, coach, and that would kind of be, what it was. But then the 12 years I did in the Chicago Public Schools, there was a lot of uncertainty with our state funding of schools, especially schools in areas of need. And then you look at positions like mine that are dedicated to out-of-school time. And those are usually the first to get underfunded or get funding being cut. So for me, it was a very interesting kind of fork in the road. Like, what do I do? Do I stay with the uneasiness and the uncertainty, or do I try to continue working in a space that I'm passionate about and making change, but doing it in a different lens, if that makes sense? Yeah. And UpMetrics provided me that opportunity in that stage. And UpMetrics is not very corporate at all, which is great. Right. We are a startup, and in San Francisco, we have a team of about 25 plus, or about 20 to 25. Out here, it's just my colleague Charles and I. So there's not a lot of red tape. We do what we need to do. We get it done. So that's kind of nice. And in terms of what UpMetrics is doing and how we impact education, is so we work with a lot of schools and districts around measuring the impact of their programs. And it can be a simple measurement of how many kids are coming, how often they're coming, or how well or not well they might be doing because they're part of a program. So we like to bring transparency to that, to then provide teachers, instructors, administrators, school boards, giving them insight to the impact of their work, and then hopefully allowing programs to grow, the good programs to grow, the not so good programs to get better, giving the teachers and the students some immediate feedback and the parents, and then kind of changing the game that way. So that's kind of the big thing, is bringing a data-driven mindset to a space that has not always used data effectively, is kind of the ways we look at it.
I mean, it's interesting. In schools, we think of data as whatever the kid's number is, right?
Correct.
What I like about UpMetrics is you bring in data that actually, hey, is this program working or not? And what kind of things have you found with some of the, you don't have to name any of your clients, but what kind of programs are interesting that you found have pretty cool data?
So UpMetrics in the Chicagoland area has been open for going on 2.5 years. So we've seen a variety of groups over that span, which has been neat, from STEM, robotics, digital marketing, workforce development, urban gardening, to your regular after-school programs, drama, theater, art, debate, varsity football, varsity volleyball, track and field, softball, baseball, etc. So all of that we've seen. For me, which is really exciting, because I worked in entrepreneurship, of course, but I worked so passionately in all those fields over time. And what's really neat is that in most cases, we're seeing a lot of growth and even higher performing students the more involved they are. So in certain cases, you are seeing that some kids who are involved versus kids that are not involved. You do see some anomalies, but for the most part, the data shows that kids who are involved and who are involved more are performing better on tests, are performing better with their grades or GPAs, and are definitely coming to school more. And so that has been really reassuring to me, because when I was at Perspectives, we would see that a lot. But Perspectives is also a very unique school. It's 2,000 kids and a couple zip codes in Chicago. And what does that mean for kids on the north or the west or the south parts of our state, and even the region? So now we're seeing that data more holistically, and it's reaffirming a lot of what I saw through my lens at Perspectives, and that's been exciting.
With your experience in the classroom, in kind of the engineering world, and now in the data world, how would you change the education system if you could do it right now?
I have kids now too, and so with that, as they're starting to attend school, my wife's a former teacher as well. We talk about that a lot, right? And as former teachers, what we liked doing, what we didn't like doing, what worked, what didn't work, what we just had to do because you had to do it, and you just were being a good teacher or a good employee. My big thing is, and I saw this when I was at Paul Robeson High School, and we were teaching this logistics class. I got to do it for 2 years. That's how I met you again, right? Is providing kids experiential learning, right? And providing them a framework as they go into the learning. So there is some guide, there is a rubric, there is something to walk into it, so expectations are set, but then kind of putting everything out there and letting the kids explore, and then being around to affirm, negate, guide, or just walk away and say, hey, you need to think about that. Or one thing I learned from one of my peers was ask 3 and then me. So as a teacher, hey, no, ask 3 then me, right? And that was something I learned from my coworkers at Robeson. So to me, it would be providing more genuine, authentic, out of classroom experiences that are valued as much as sitting in physics, calc, and English every day for 50 minutes, 5 days a week. Right. So that's my big thing, and I was thinking about this the other night when I knew we were going to talk. A lot of those students that I taught when I was at Robeson are probably in their late 20s and early 30s now. And through social media, we've stayed connected, which could be good and bad. Sorry guys. But with that, it's been interesting to see a handful of those former students that are now working in the transportation, distribution, and logistics field. Which is pretty. So I have a few of my former students that are truck drivers now, which is awesome. And I remember taking them to a FedEx facility in Aurora, a UPS facility just down the street in Hodgkins, going to a Caterpillar facility in Aurora too. Or actually not Caterpillar, a Toyota facility in Aurora. So we did some of those things. It's interesting how 10 years later, 12 years later, some of them are saying to me like, hey, Mr. Mullick, that some of that, what we learned in those classes is now driving me now. So to me, I think what I would change is the experiential, authentic learning, and not just providing the opportunities, because I feel a lot of schools provide them, but it's prioritizing them
Right.
and putting resources behind them and allowing adults to be free in doing that. I think that's important.
It's almost taking the data that you're finding out in
Yep.
this position and then bringing it into the classroom, saying this is working outside of school or after school, post school, and bringing them into
Yeah.
the day.
Yeah, extending the day,
Yeah.
right? So I think the big term for that is connected learning,
Right.
or learner connected, right?
Right.
So with that, it's extending that day and saying what's working from. A lot of people say 4 to 6, but as a former athletic director, it's 4 to 10,
Right, yeah.
So it's working 4 to 10, 7 days a week sometimes. Definitely can work during the school day if it's prioritized.
Yeah.
And over time, what will the test scores show? I mean, I think we'll see, but I think what's more important is, what are the students taking home with them,
Right.
and then what are they applying to their daily lives?
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's been interesting. That logistics class that we had, it was when I took it on. I knew what I was doing because I'm a former engineer, so that was neat, and I had lived logistics. But then when it came time to teach it, that was like, holy cow! Like, what am I teaching?
Right.
But to see some of those skills absorbed with, now that they're young adults, or
Yeah.
it's been pretty neat.
Where can people find more about UpMetrics?
Yeah. So we're on the web, obviously, like most, like all companies now. So that's www.upmetrics.com. We're very active on all our social platforms. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. So you can connect us, any way there. And we're in, our offices are actually in Chicago, Philadelphia, Sacramento, Los Angeles, and then headquartered in San Francisco.
Nice.
So
nice.
so please come see us.
Absolutely. Measuring the disruption. That's what I'm going to call it.
There
right?
we go. Let's measure it.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah,
Thank you
thanks.
so much for
Appreciate
inviting me into the office.
Yeah.
Guys, check out UpMetrics. We'll put all the stuff down below. Thank you again for watching and listening. We'll talk to you later on Disrupt Education.
Yep. Thanks.